Welcome to the most gender balanced panel probably of the year. So, we are here to talk about food security and hunger, which is a more emphatic word. And when we talk about hunger I don't see as a negative word. For me, hunger is the most secular, because hunger does not really worry about your caste, creed, religion, boundary, countries. So much so, hunger and malnutrition sometimes can happen even to the people who have money. We have rich people, but they're suffering from malnutrition, and we will discuss a little bit on that in a bit. So the global hunger or malnutrition is so much that the number of people who do not have affordability to afford nutritious food is 3.3 billion people. 3.3 billion people, that's the correct number. And from this, 800 million people are those who do not have access to enough food and they go to bed hungry. I don't know if they can sleep or not, but I certainly can't sleep when my stomach is not full. And some shocking numbers I want to inform you, because we are talking to a multifaceted audience, that while I finish this sentence, in 4 seconds, somebody in the global scenario of scheme of things, somebody has died. So every 4 seconds, one person dies of hunger or malnutrition or diseases from these two things. So by the time we'll finish this half-day conference, about 15,000 people would have left this beautiful planet. So that is the stark reality. But the silver lining is, ironically, that there is enough food available in the world. If I take out the total food production in the world and divide it by the number of people, 7.2 billion people, for each person, we get 3,000 calories. So there is enough number of calories available to everybody in this world. Unfortunately, those calories in the form of food at the right time, at the right place, at the right price, for suiting the right needs, social, cultural needs, are not available to the people. So food security, hunger is also a socio-economic, political and supply chain issue. It's not only simply the economic issue. And when we navigate this complex issue of hunger and food security, we have to definitely understand our past and where we are today and how we can imagine our future where nobody goes to bed hungry or thirsty or malnourished. And so to discuss these issues, we are here joined by 4 very eminent brains of our industry, from the nutrition to the food systems to supply chain, the food and FMCG world, to the multilateral body negotiation, and also from the finance sector. Historically, what we have seen, Global South or Asia has suffered because of the industrialization of the rich world, and also because of increasing population and the technology not being transferred at the right time. This led to a food insecurity in the world, and also the curse, what I call the curse of colonization. The policies were not made for the Africa and Asia. They were suiting the colonizers. They were suiting those forces which were ruling this area. So that also contributed to some extent. And so in 1950s, as I said in the previous panel, there was so much shortage of food that the region was not dependent. Region was dependent on the import of food. Policies were not conducive to a time that fortunately there is enough supply of food is available in Asia. It's just a matter of sorting our supply chain, logistics issue, affordability issues. So with this background, I would also like to just touch upon one point, that this was a past, and currently with the geopolitical problems between Ukraine and Russia, which are the two major supply source of the food, especially wheat and barley and corn to the world, and COVID and the climate change, the three curses of C, the climate change, COVID and the conflict, the situation has, whatever the worst situation was, it has intensified. So that needs to be fixed. And good thing, the silver lining is there is enough money available, there is enough technology, there is enough food available in the world to have an equitable distribution of the food. So with this background, I would like to hear some opening remarks from our overseas guest, Miss Imelda. She has come all the way from Indonesia, which is one of my favorite countries, not because it has India and Indonesia, but Indonesia is the largest supplier of edible oils, the cheapest, most affordable oil to India, about 6 million tons in a year, which keeps our meals really delicious and tummies well oiled. So she was recently in Dubai to attend COP28, which is like Mahakumbh of all the climate discussion in the world. And she has some amazing takeaways from there. So Imelda, I would like to hear your thoughts. How did that work out for you, and how is going to work out for us?
Thank you so much for the introduction. And it's my first time in Mumbai. I'm super, super pleasantly happy to be here. And I think I'm going to come back. So while I'm based in Bali, Indonesia, I have a home. You're all welcome to visit me in Bali, Indonesia. I spent 6 months as senior advisor to the presidency of the UAE as it holds the biggest climate change conference at the end of the year, which is called COP28. And I think I wanted to share some good news coming out of this conference. Apart from this, I've also been advising the Association of ASEAN Nations, 10 countries of Southeast Asia, probably some of your favorite countries to visit, the beaches of Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia as well, on ensuring that agriculture and food system are able to withstand the impacts of climate change. Not just withstand, offer solutions. So it's a very exciting field for me, and that's what I wanted to share today. But before that, when I was in UAE, supporting the UAE presidency, some of you may be aware that one of the most inspiring, as some of our critics said, that came out of COP28 was actually the COP28 leader-led. When I said leader-led, it was signed by heads of states, Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems, and Climate Action. 159 countries signed this declaration. And unfortunately, we didn't manage to convince India to sign this declaration. Our neighbors, almost all of Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka signed this declaration, Bangladesh as well, South Korea, Japan, 159 countries. And I understand where India is coming from and some of the assertions or uncertainties about this. But I feel somehow we're still open to getting the signature of India. The presidency of the UAE will run for 1 more year until we go to Azerbaijan this year. But what is the significance of such declarations? The significance of such declaration, maybe some is very jaded, They will say, oh, this climate change convention, every year there's always a declaration. What's new about this? But I say this is very momentous because I think this is the highest political goodwill sent, that we move beyond just looking at the problem of food security, but looking at the whole food system, from production, consumption, nutrition, and trade. There's a whole system being impacted by climate change, and there's a whole system that can offer solutions. And it's 159 countries who says, okay, we agree with the basic principles of really accelerating action. I know that many of us will talk about the science, the financing, the policies, and they're all there already. The solutions to the impacts of climate change are all there. The science is very clear. The approaches and innovation is coming out. But we need accelerated action and alignment because we're all like shooting in the Wild West, you know, in different directions. We really need to, coordination is an approach that's not often seen as a full-time work. Coordination and alignment of our vision, of our goals, but it's what's needed right now. So this COP28 declaration came out. There's money. Bill Gates put $100 million on the table to support innovation in agri-food system. And some of the innovation are really being practiced in Asia. The UAE put another $100 million, so it became a $200 million innovation fund because of this declaration. And we're going to report in Brazil as to how we're really using this money, how we are supporting innovation, because we really need solutions. And I wanted to also bring up the topic of food loss and waste, the other side of food security and food insecurity. And you are right that actually there's enough food. And what we are saying is that certain percentage of food is lost in agriculture production. Certain percentage is significantly lost in processing of our food. And certain percentage is also lost in consumption. We need to address this because of food loss and waste. And all of these are significantly contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. So these are some of the challenges which, as a nerd on solutions, I am geeking out on. And from Southeast Asia perspective, we are very coming out with so many solutions. And some of them are even inspired by what's happening in India on the ground, especially on low emissions rice that's happening in India. So before I talk on a storm, I give it back to you.
Thank you very much. I think we need more nerds and more geeky discussion on, and you did a good job by coming to India. Maybe you'll keep coming more and you'll be able to convince your counterparts here to sign. With that, I would like to move to Bhavna. She's the head of all the nutrition side of the business of ITC, which is one of the largest multinational, homegrown multinational, which has reinvented itself completely. And it'll be very interesting to hear, because your company, your organization is involved end-to-end supply chains. How can industry or corporates like yours contribute in reducing hunger, making food more nutritious, reducing the malnutrition, and also do it in a sustainable and green manner, to start with?
Thank you. Actually, you started very, very beautifully, and it also kind of drifted my thoughts, so I'll just probably continue on that part. And yeah, I think the recent IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Control, Change Panel, they actually said that the entire conversation that we've been having about that 1.5 degree, and we shouldn't be breaching that as a planet, I think we are already there, right? In a way that next few years, we are probably going to hit about a 2% or a 3% degree rise in the temperatures, right? And what's that?
You're saying we have already crossed?
Almost there, because the conversation is now happening towards how do we actually get into action and not just policies, right? Yeah. It's not about talking anymore. So why is it important for people like us sitting here or in corporates and everything like that? Because what happens is, if we do that, almost 130 to 140 million more people will be immediately pushed into hunger. That means they will not have food. And that will happen because of multiple changes. And specifically, if I put two in the forefront, it's going to be the climate and the conflicts which are happening. There was anyways a lot of pressure on the planet, and because of these two things, the arable land, the land which was basically available in terms of soil, just to grow something, is going to be reduced. The water available is not going to be available the way we had imagined it before. And even the quality of seeds and the things that you can grow or could have grown with the disruptions in the supply chains which are happening because of both climate and conflict is going to put that added pressure to it. So this is something which we all have to realize, because it's going to impact all of us.
course.
The second biggest thing, which I think you hinted at, is that food loss and waste. If I just put a number to India, there was a UNEP report which also came, which said that even for India, and I think it was also picked up by FSSAI some time back, to say almost 50 kg of food per person annually is lost here. And there's enough data to go back to, so which talks about the other aspect of it, that while we have, how much we are actually wasting. The third is, we all have heard about UN SDG goals, right? There are 17 of them, there is markers, there are targets and everything, and if I put up the biggest thing which cuts across nations and continents and everyone, which is hypothetically, we talk about 3 of them, which is about anemia, underweight, wasting, and of course obesity and other things being added to it. We are really not being able to solve the anemia itself, despite the fact that all of us have been talking and working about it for the last 3 to 5 decades, right? And of course, Dr. Raj will also tell us about the new data set which is going to come for our country. But if I look at the previous one, even if I look at the most vulnerable population, which is under 5, the anemia percentage has only gotten worse for our country, right? So if I put all of this together, I don't want to depress or scare people here. But the fact is that there are numbers, there's data, there is stuff available. And one of the things that I've realized in my conversation in 3 silos, which have to come together, agri, food, and nutrition, is that they're not separate. They're literally linked to each other in a way that we can't separate them, and we shouldn't separate them. Because at the ground level, when you go and visit a farmer, a lot of them don't even know that what they're growing, should they be growing or not. They're just worried about what's going to happen to their family by end of the month. Will they have enough money to feed? Who's going to help? How are they going to help? Who's making them aware about these climate change conversations we are having in different continents and places? So this is a work that is, of course, being done. So coming back to it, because of course there can be a lot of data discussion that can happen. For an ethical or a responsible organization like ours, or many others like ours, I think there are 3 ways people are doing it. Very, just to put it very bluntly here. One is the whole products which are being done. There's a huge scope of making them responsibly. Like we had the entire millets world that happened. The most responsibly done, millets is one crop which is, I think, under C4. It takes up more carbon, right, as compared to any other crop, water resilient, climate resilient, and those kind of initiatives need to go on. The second is the work which happens directly under sustainability gamut. And that's pivoted on 3 things: affordability, accessibility, and their planet friendliness. See, let's be honest. If something is not affordable, it has no place in a routine or a daily version of it. We cannot just have only fancy things sitting in gourmet shops or companies launching products which are fancy case studies, and that's about it, right? So it has to be affordable. Of course, it has to be accessible. And then, in the turn, if it's good for the planet, it's good for everybody in the business. The third part, which sometimes people take it as a sidestep, is the CSR. A lot of people think, okay, there is a law, there is a % of money I need to put out, let me do it any other way and it doesn't really matter, I'll just, have a good name. Actually, if you go out and about, the maximum response that you get actually comes from CSR initiatives, because that's where there is the least amount of conflict between stakeholders that happen. You can literally bring about, from academia to industry to policymakers, regulators, all on the same table and do some meaningful work. Maybe in the next phase, I'll take up some examples on that. And I do have them because when you do those visits, literally in the villages, and you literally sit in the houses of the beneficiaries, that's when you realize the power of these 3 things coming together. So those are my initial thoughts.
So yeah, the message is very clear that whatever solutions we think of as industry or as a domain player, stakeholder, it has to be practical and affordable. And of course, a lot of business people are sitting here, and we have come here for also some commercial takeaways. And that takes me to the other lady in the room, on the panel, Manpreet Oberoi. You have had illustrious career as working with the top names like Cargill, American Express, Golden Agri on the supply chain finance side. You have finance, you have invested money on their behalf. So when you see these kind of ecosystem, what are the commercial or investment or supply chain opportunities in this agri-food hunger ecosystem with your opening thoughts here? That'd be very nice to hear. So not only we talk about problems, we also talk about how we can do some business, make some money so that we can think about these bigger issues. Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for the question, and I think everybody has given such amazing inputs. So before I answer the question, I'd like to give a little perspective of what India is, which is my home country. So we are a 140 crore population, out of which 81 crore is engaged in agri-related activity, which is 58%. We have the highest net cropped area. We have the highest irrigated area. And we are exporting over 50 billion in terms of agri-commodities out of the country. We are the second largest producers of staples, which is wheat and rice. And we are also the second largest producers of multiple products like dry fruits, milk, coconut, eggs, fish, etc., etc. That's a bright part of it. Now coming to the reality, our agri-GDP contribution has been declining. Right now it's standing at 18%. At some point in time it was quite high, from 22, 25%, it's come down to 18%. The growth rate is 3.5% year on year as an industry segment. Out of 1.25 lakh startups in the country, India is the unicorn hub. We only have 1485 agri startups in the country. Our farmers still are uneducated. There is not 100% or a 90% literacy which is being imparted to our farmers. So this is a ground reality where I'm coming from. Now, when I look at this macro picture and I come up with solutions, the first and foremost solution, which I think Hemant in the earlier panel also commented, is education. Education at the level of micro, which is the farmer. Because if you're talking about global warming, like what Bhavna mentioned, global supply and demand, a farmer sitting in a Uttar Pradesh belt wouldn't know much about the global economics as much as he's concerned about मेरा कितना बिकेगा, मैं कितना सीड उगाऊं और मुझे कितना उत्पाद मिलेगा और बच्चों की पढ़ाई कैसे करानी है. Education at that level. If a farmer's family, a child wants to become a farmer, there should be an adequate amount of incentive for the child to become a farmer. Second is a macro level education. Everybody today, I mean, all of us sitting in this hall, I'm sure our kids, when we think about their education, we think of them becoming MBA. We think of them going to IIT, IIM. How many of us would want our kids to be farmers? Anybody, raise your hands if you have ever thought your kids to be farmers. I mean, that's a question we need to ask. Why is farming as a sector not equally incentivized? Agri-commodity trading company, I also come from one. Why is an agri-trading commodity company capitalizing on the income while the guy who's actually cultivating the farm not able to meet 3-course meals? The day our country is going to answer this question is the day the entire dynamics of agri and poverty and nutrition and exploitation will be answered. So there are some tips which I probably would like to give. First is education at the micro and the macro level. Second is training and skill set. There has to be a hub and spoke model. It has to be a collective effort between the public and private. There has to be centers which impart training to the farmers about soil, how to understand the soil, how to understand which seed to apply when. All of that has to be done in private and public partnership. There has to be use of technology. A lot of startups are also coming, which are coming into blockchain, whereby you can actually trace back the seed from farm to fork. So all of that needs to be incentivized so that they can go to those farm gate level and support the farmers to bring out the best production, which can be taken through the supply chain, which also entails logistics. Unless and until the farm gate and the cities, the smart cities, are connected logistically through good means of transportation, we will never have the right price of grains sitting in our hotel room, right? So we definitely need the logistic support. We need the supply chains. We need cold storages. We need, if a farmer has produced tomatoes, we need processing plants nearby to the farmer's place so that those tomatoes could be processed into purees. which could be also sold at a higher premium. So all of these aspects have to be taken into consideration, and these are very basic things, which if being taken care of, it will not just enhance his livelihood, but it will also enhance the GDP contribution of farming as a sector to our economy. It's a long answer to a short question.
No, but this is a very important answer. So the message, at least I got, is there is a great deal of investment opportunity in agri-food ecosystem in India, because that's where 68% of Indians are directly or indirectly involved. But unfortunately, the real money is not being committed by the investing community. So before we start looking money outside, I appeal to all the VCs, I appeal to all the funds, all the investment bodies to come and put in the money there, because agriculture is in India's DNA, it's in our system. So that's where I think and that can go across all the value chain, from skilling to processing to making it affordable, and also farmer aware about regenerative practices. With that, I would like to go to my guru. I saved the best for the last, Dr. Raj Bhandari. He is the voice of nutrition and millets. All this awareness you see about the millet, this is the gentleman responsible behind that. And he is not only a top brain in terms of nutrition, he's advisor to all the government bodies, including Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture, Niti Aayog on the nutrition, millets. Also, he will tell us, he'll give us some sense of the data which keeps coming. Doctor, there was an article last week in Economist magazine which talks about the food, how India's food is, maybe it's too good to be true because it leads to obesity, malnutrition at times, the lack of it. And also, many bodies, you may or may not agree, they put India on a hunger index very low among the overall listing of 185 countries. They also say 75% Indian can't afford a nutritious meal, and 35% children are stunted or wasted. They're not going up to their full potential. Do you agree?
So, thank you, Sudhakar, for bringing me here with the very nice audience. And it is good to see that this month of March is also being celebrated as the National Nutrition Month. Government of India has declared March as important to engage with people, disseminate nutritional messages. So that is a good thing. And the theme of this conference is also very exciting, Nourishing Nations. With that, I wish to touch to the point that unfortunately hunger is being weaponized also in many countries like Yemen and this Hamas-Israel war, and Ukraine with disruption of the supply chain. So these are pressing problems which are man-made, and there's a lot we can do to solve this. The other thing is that India has embarked on a very ambitious journey. From Swachh, we have progressed to Swasth. Now we are treading upon the path to make our population healthy, where nutrition is one of the key drivers to bringing that part. The theme of this month is feeding smart right from the start. And therefore, this intergenerational cycle, that is right from, the time that a mother gets, that a woman gets pregnant, and to in the entire life cycle, this journey is very important if we have to curb, mitigate, or eliminate hunger and malnutrition, because they go hand in hand. Malnutrition is a very complex web of multiple factors, and therefore we have a great program, a flagship program of the government, which is Poshan 2.0, which has both nutrition specific and nutrition sensitive interventions, which go a long way to bring down, all these things, whether it is stunting, wasting, anemia in children and in pregnant women, by 2 percentage points per annum. So these are great goals, and we are progressing in that direction. Now, I'm a healer, a medical professional, so I'll bring in some extra perspective before I come to your question proper. You see, we are undergoing an epidemiological shift in the way our diseases get manifest. We have a huge burden now of hypertension, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, dyslipidemia, polycystic ovarian syndrome, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancers, and fatty liver. You see, fatty liver, some people objected to the term fatty, the stigma that comes with fatty. So the Americans renamed it as metabolic dysregulation associated steatotic liver disease. Now, why I'm saying that approximately 30 to 40% of the general population has fatty liver. And the worst part is, when you said thin fat, right, they don't know that they have fatty liver. Many of you sitting here in the room might have this fatty liver disease. What is worrisome for me is that this disease is being manifested in children. Now, children don't drink alcohol, but they are getting diseases of alcoholic. And as young as, and we have data to show, as young as 10 years old, 12 years old, they have fatty. So where does it, have we ever looked at the causation? We need to go upstream from these diseases. Where does this fat come from? That should be the question. And there I would say, that it is our food. Most of these diseases, they are foodable, they are not druggable. As a doctor, I can tell you, there is no drug which will cure it. You will have to be on drugs throughout.
We have to watch our food.
But what would really make a difference is, in terms of prevention and control and management of these diseases, is the food. And therefore, now, I would urge Bhavna and all of you to, where industry and we all, academia, can make good, real food, which really gives you something like an energy to grow and also to maintain your body functions. Now, it is, what you have said about the global hunger index, I'll just touch upon the fact that India has been tainted, on that scale of 0 to 100 as 29.1 and 111 on the global hunger index. I have serious, it's unethical. It is totally biased. I have serious issues with methodology. How India could be worse than Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka? I mean, no way. We have the largest public distribution system where we are giving free rations to 800 million people. Government is giving these free rations, and our Honorable Prime Minister has extended this for 5 years. So we have the greatest social safety net program. Many states are also giving pulses, milk, and oil, and these things which really form a very balanced diet. The issue is that we need to educate our people that they are able to, consume the right kind of food. The other is that this GHI was calculated by an opinion poll of 3,000 people. So you just call up those people and ask, are you hungry? And they say yes. Well, people in India are fasting at times.
I'm always hungry even if I've had milk.
So you cannot extrapolate this, poll to the to the number of people who are hungry. And therefore, I have serious issues with methodology. We should use the FAO Household Food Consumption Insecurity Index instead. And the last thing I would want to mention here is that Government of India, the NIN and ICMR have instituted a study because there is a data drought. I mean, why this poll was taken? Because we didn't have the data. So now we are progressing with a diet and biomarker study. And this diet and biomarker study will show the nutrient consumed by each person on a daily basis with a 24-hour diet recall. It will also include children from 5 years to 15 years. It will power sample size to find out what is the extent of hunger and malnutrition. And we are drawing venous blood to see hemoglobin and blood sugar levels. So it's going to be a very, very revealing data, and I'm sure we'll show good progress by then.
That'd be very nice. And with that, I thank all my panelists. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions, which you are encouraged to take with them offline. So just quick summary, Dr. Saab, diversify your source of food, millets of course being at the top, and given to Bhavna's takeaway, affordable, practical solution, more collaboration from all the countries to solve the problem of climate change, to invest in agri and food ecosystem, starting with India. Thank you very much with that, and I think you have something to.
Yeah, so millets have been very close to my heart, and I can tell you these are smart foods. They are good for you, good for the farmer.
Especially mixed with pulses.
Sorry?
And they mix with pulses.
Oh, right. The marriage between millets and pulses is, of course, a very useful, and I'm sure this will go a long way in addressing the issue of food security, because in India, we have, at least 1 in 7 children who do not consume a diversified diet. That is the challenge. So millets and pulses, where pulses, complement millet. Millets are rich in methionine, which is an essential amino acids, and pulses are rich in lysine. So you get a very good quality protein by combining both. The other thing is that I'm very much enamored by the fact that millets have polyphenols, phytonutrients, slow digesting starch, good quality protein, and it acts as a prebiotic. Now,
we also have some dishes of millets here in the dinner today. We make sure we have millets.
So millets were served in the White House when Honorable Prime Minister visited. 60% of the menu was millets. In G20, we served millet dishes to all the guests, and therefore, you see, the due diligence, we have a body of evidence. As a scientist, I can tell you that millets will reduce and mitigate hypertension, dyslipidemia, calcium retention, gut dysbiosis, and you say diabetes, of course. All these things because millets are rich in fiber also. So with that, I can tell you that millets and pulses is not an option, it is an imperative.
So let's eat more millets. On that happy note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I thank my panelists. Yeah.
Thank you.